Good afternoon, everyone. Impressive conference, impressive things going on this year. Thank you for that. I'm going to present shortly on, or a brief presentation, obviously I'm nervous, on Anatsui fading cloth for the St. Louis Art Museum. So there's been many iterations of installing this work, and I'm sure many museums have work similar to this, maybe larger in scale, maybe smaller in scale. We've come up with a great solution of adhering the piece, or not adhering, but basically assembling the piece to a foam wall. This has been kind of established. Kurt helped establish that along with Kansas City, and we installed this. And it's been a practice that we've been following for several years. The prior iteration to this, which I don't have a slide of, is it used to be on a wooden frame. That was even easier to install, but you could not manipulate it. The curators wanted to manipulate the cloth to create waves, create undulations in it. So this foam allows for the best practice. I believe this was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago that we installed it. So what we did this time was we had a large board. This piece, I believe, is somewhere, I think it's 25 feet long. The dimensions are at the end. But we have a long board. We have the piece is constructed of bottle caps that are hammered, and they're hand sewn, if you will, with tiny copper wire, so it's very susceptible to breakage, to loss of the wires, and so you have to kind of spread the hanging apparatus across the length of the piece to get a good spread to be able to lift it. So we've gone up with different iterations of this. There's been several ways. Right now, this is the old one where we have the boards, we have foam, and we are actually nailing, if you believe it, in between each copper each bottle cap to get enough tooth and a bite along this board. As you can see, it is quite scabbed together. It's wonky, it's very wavy, it's hard to manage. Getting anything more scabbed together is incredibly unsafe for people lifting it, and it's just probably not the best idea, and I wanted to come up with something that was better. This is just a final install of, we used to have two preparators lift this board with the piece up to the top wall, and while I had to run on the JLG and quickly skewer along the top wall to get it to stay. Not ideal. So what I did is again, this conference is it's a we. So I have a great fabricator, Tim Scornia, who is great skilled with TIG welding. I was working on developing new textile rolls. I was converting them, instead of galvanized steel tubes, to aluminum square tube. And so I had a bunch of this on hand. And I asked him, I was like, is there a way that I can draw something up that I can build to be able to assemble or use it to lift the Anatsui a little bit safer, a little bit more controlled, without carrying up a ladder, more rigidity, to be able to lift this piece. And I have something in mind to do it too. So he could tackle the project. I had plenty of tube on hand. As you can see, we built this very long apparatus. I call it the frog with the eyes. We like to nickname things. I'm sure everyone does. Comprised of foam, which I'll show you here. Here's a side view of it. So we cut the channels in half so we could insert a block of 4-pound foam. The gusseted channels, we could line it with Velara, if you will. This is another detailed view of how the foam can slide in and out. We can reuse the foam. We can replace the foam for whatever needs if it gets too many holes in it. And this is just another detail of the two eyelets and some of the gusset structure, along with the blades that hold the foam in. Another detailed picture of the eyes and the gusset. Now this is the piece of equipment that I found to be able to lift this thing. I had heard about this during another installation. I was working with someone actually from France, and they were talking about a material handler. And they were like, don't you have a material handler with a back end? And I kept on trying to figure out, what is this material handler with a back end? And so I started to research counterbalance material handlers. And so this thing, the Sumner 2520, which there's 3 models of this, I found. It is an American-made product, and it can be found, so look for it. It's hard to find, but this is a miraculous tool for exactly this project. And for many other projects, as you can only imagine, getting up close to a wall, this piece of equipment can hold 800 pounds at 25 feet, or 20 feet. So there's 4 different models. I chose the one that kind of was somewhat in the middle, in a way. And what I also like about this piece of equipment is that, one, you can push it from behind with one person. You can get a piv jib type situation, which you can lift something from a center point. And it also comes apart and folds. So it's a beautiful piece of equipment. And I like this picture because it can fit through a man door. So it can get through galleries. So now the new process is, now we can skewer, which is much safer. We get many more points of contact, being able to utilize the entire, I think it was a foot and a half spread of material to be able to skewer the piece of the Anatsui along a larger span. See the foam, we're still using that. Another shot of the skewering. Another shot of the skewering with the Velara. We just had to keep it irregular because the piece is irregular. Now it's time to hook it up. So we can fold it, conservation approved. We can fold it. It usually is stored rolled. It actually came folded. So now we have the skewered piece on some poly. Of course, the cardboard's protecting that. The poly helps us slide it back and forth. Hook it up to the eyes. Taping the plastic to the back. And now lift. And so now I don't have to have 2 of my staff precariously lifting a board with the Anatsui, which is not all that heavy, but it is heavy and cumbersome. Now they can just sit on a ladder and hold the 2 flaps. I will say that I would like to make this thing longer, but I was limited with the stock that I had on hand. Lifting, pulling the plastic out. Final position, to the wall. And now we can skewer the entire piece safely to the wall. And then we just lift the beam out from behind. And finish the undulations and finish the installation work. And then it ends up sort of look like, I tried to take a better picture of it, but then you can undulate so you can see that that's the final product. Thank you, St. Louis Art Museum and my API department, and thank you, Packin, and all of the Packin guests here today. And thank you, Anatsui. Are there questions? I don't know if anybody has.
Hey, how you doing? 2 questions. One is the extension arms. You may have covered that and I missed it. Are they available to purchase, or is that something you guys fabricated?
So
you guys
that we
fabricated
used.
those?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, do you have a cost for that piece of machinery?
It was around $3,200. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.